Most fans of true crime would love the chance to experience catching a killer. This is where Hunt a Killer comes in. This is the best way to get in the shoes of a real detective and feel like you're solving an actual real-life murder. I'm absolutely addicted to Hack. I've been subscribed to their 6-episode season since they were a thing and have played all but one of their standalone games. My office is filled with documents and evidence from their cases, and there's nothing like filing away when you've solved and closed the case. If you'd like to get your hands on one of their standalone cases, use our code SIRENS at checkout on their website, www.huntakiller.com. And hey, every episode helps fund the Cold Case Foundation, a nonprofit that assists in bringing justice to unsolved cases throughout the country.
You're listening to Sirens, a true crime podcast, brought to you by the Sirens Network. This podcast contains explicit content, so listener discretion is advised. The opinions expressed on this podcast are solely the views of the hosts and do not reflect the views of affiliates, associates, or sponsors of this podcast.
This is Sirens,
a true crime podcast.
Jesus Christ. Get your shit together, ladies. Good God. Okay, so we are currently part 2.
It is part 2. Duh.
Dose.
So, for my listeners, if you haven't listened to part 1, you're going to have to jump back over to You're Doing Fine, Oklahoma, for reasons.
That was good. I like that. I like that a lot.
And they are streaming wherever we're streaming, so, shouldn't be too hard to find. And before we start, I'm going to let them introduce themselves just a little bit so you know what you're getting into with them. So,
I'm Shanna. I am a mom. JK. I identify as a mom, but I'm not only a mom. I am co-host of You're Doing Fine, Oklahoma, a little podcast that my cousin and I do together so that we can spend time together.
Yes.
And it's kind of blown up, so we're very thankful for that.
Each other.
We do. We can actually say that we do, like we're besties, and she's
We're
my
besties.
person.
Yeah,
awesome.
We've
Yeah.
known each other for a solid 40 years at this point.
I literally raised her, kind of.
Basically.
I was her caretaker during the summers.
Yep.
I should
She
not
was
have
the
been.
babysitter with the worst influence ever.
Oh, God. It was
I
so
was like,
bad.
Mom, you're making poor decisions and paying these people to watch me. It's fine.
It was fine. It was the 90s. Like,
Whatever.
yeah, we did whatever.
And we are all from Oklahoma.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Born and raised.
Yep. And my name is Shy, also a mom.
But she doesn't identify as a mom.
I am a teen mom. I'm a teenager's mom. That doesn't sound
no.
right. I was not a teen mom. I am a mom to teenagers.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's my claim to fame right
Yeah.
now.
And when did you guys start your podcast?
We started end of October 2021.
Why do we all start in October?
The fall is pretty boring in Oklahoma. There's a lot of football on. And we're like, we need something to do.
You know what? And also, too, we knew seasonal depression was right around the corner. And we're like, we got to find something to keep our little brains preoccupied through what was already a hellacious year and a half.
Yeah.
Can't go on doing this much longer. What can we do? We hadn't seen a lot of each other.
Yeah.
Like, literally, Shan lived with us for a while.
Years ago, not
Years
in
ago.
2021.
No, this was years ago when Shan was just a young person coming to Oklahoma City. And so we saw each other
All
at
the time.
least once a week, didn't we? We
Yeah.
had cookouts all the time. Pandemic hits. We don't see each other. And Shan was like, let's do this. Like, we don't get to see each other. I miss spending time with you. Like, let this be our time together. And I was like,
Did you guys-
fucking sign me up.
Did you start, I don't know how you do, I know sometimes you do it in the same room.
We've always
We've always been in the same room, literally side by side,
Okay.
within so close quarters that we can touch each other's feet.
Like right now.
It's weird.
Play footsie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've always been,
Yeah.
side by side. We started in a walk-in closet.
Literally,
Sitting
yeah.
together.
I feel you.
Under a blanket
yeah,
fort.
Under a blanket fort, so we'd have like the sound dampening effect going on. But yeah,
That's awesome.
it's it's kind of
we were raised in a very law enforcement family. So our, like, Shy's dad and some of our uncles were sheriff's deputies and things like that when we were growing up. And then, of course, Shy's dad worked in the prison system. And just our family's forever telling stories about true crime and speculating about true crime. And our moms like to gossip a whole lot. So there was always a lot of chit-chat about who's doing what to whom and why, you know? So
Yeah, I was brought up in a first responder family.
Yeah.
Li- Literally everyone
Same.
is some sort of first responder.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
It's like at dinner and people are talking about the grossest stuff and it doesn't even faze you.
yeah. By the time you're out of high school, you've already heard the worst of the worst
yeah.
and what can potentially happen.
Yeah.
And, so you're very. I feel like we're at young ages like very on guard about most things, which now we kind of tell our kids, as being women anyways, being girls, being female, you kind of have to kind of set that early.
Yeah.
Set that,
expectation that not everybody is on this planet to do you right.
yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
majority is probably not. So
Yeah. And I mean, we're going to talk about it anyway. Might as well talk about it on the podcast.
yeah.
Oh yeah, we talk about everything. We talk about our mental health journeys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talk about kids, raising kids.
Yeah.
We talk about marriage. We talk about
Pets.
true crime.
Yeah.
We talk about pets.
Yeah.
We talk about everything, and we are not naturally outgoing people.
Yeah.
So these are not conversations that we would typically have with strangers.
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel you.
And we're just kind of having conversations with ourselves, and apparently like 10,000 people are listening at this point. So
Yeah,
and
we're
we're
like, hey.
Super proud of us for coming this far, for sure. Like we didn't expect that really at all. We were just like, let's do it. Let's see what
Yep.
happens. If nothing else, this is for us
Us to spend time together.
to spend time together. And if people like it, hey, like come into our little world and just hang out.
That's kind of how it started with me. Like, I was like, it's just my mom's going to be listening to this.
Yep.
And then it grows and you don't even know what happened half the time. And you guys came up here to my studio today from Oklahoma City.
Yes.
In the
Yeah, we
Oklahoma
both
City
live in
area.
the greater Oklahoma City metroplex.
Yes.
Let's get bougie. Which is something that we don't recommend. You don't meet strangers on the internet and just go to their houses. So,
It's been basically fine so far.
so far it's been great.
do what we say, not as what we do. So.
Exactly. We're going to tell you every time on the podcast, don't go to someone's house that you don't know.
Exactly, yeah.
But in real life, we're going to...
Unless they're like, I have an awesome podcast set up. You should come do a podcast here.
It's the new candy in a van.
Yes, exactly.
Okay?
You could have just said, I want to show you my setup, and I'd be like, I'm down. I'm there.
Our setup sucks, but
It doesn't even
You know
matter.
what? We're going to work on it, Shan. We're going to work on
it's
it.
gonna be great.
We have a whole room that we could use. We're going to work on it. We're going to get better.
So we are talking about Bobbie Parker and Randolph Dial, right?
Yes.
I get to listen this time. This is like, I don't have to tell the story. I get to just listen and be like, what the fuck? So this is the part 2 again. If you haven't heard part 1, hop on over to You're Doing Fine Oklahoma. Catch up there, and then you can hit play. Like, we'll wait.
Yeah,
Here
it's
we
fine.
go. We're waiting.
We'll
right
wait
now.
for you. Because if you start now, things are going to be really fucking confusing.
It's going to be very confusing.
Yeah.
Go listen to part 1 now, and return in 3, 2, 1. Okay.
All right, so let's kick it off.
Go for it,
Let's
man.
do this. So Tuesday, August 31st of 1994.
Okay.
Hot fucking day in Oklahoma.
Yeah, you know it was 115 in southwest Oklahoma.
Oh, God.
So hot.
Yep. Yeah.
Hot, hot, hot.
So, Randy Parker, the deputy warden at the Oklahoma State Reformatory in Granite, goes to work on a normal hot Oklahoma summer day. Every day, he walks the 200 yards from his home to his prison office.
200 yards.
200 yards.
200 yards.
His home is right outside the gates.
That's
I was going to be like, how long is a football field? But
more than
no,
200.
No one knows here.
It's 100 yards.
Is it?
Yes. So it's 2 football fields.
2 football
See?
fields.
I didn't
Go
even get
sports
that right.
balls. So he's walking the 200 yards from his house to his office. And the Parker family that day, it's Randy Parker, Bobbie Parker, and their 2 daughters,
Okay.
Brandy and Robbie.
Brandy and Robbie. Okay.
The Parker family that day had their normal breakfast. The kids headed off to school. And Randy headed to work.
Right, because school is back in now. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And Bobbie set about doing her daily chores. Doing cleaning, getting stuff ready. I'm sure she was doing laundry, like meal prepping.
Getting all the stuff done that she can't get done with her kids around.
Doing the shit that women do after
Yeah.
people leave us the
Yeah.
fuck alone.
Yeah.
Right?
Just give
all
me
the
2
things.
seconds and everything in the world will be done.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. So she's kind of doing all this knowing that Randy will be home for lunch because he comes home for lunch every day.
I'd be like,
Does she make him lunch every day?
Oh, yeah.
Aw. That's so nice of her.
Yeah, that's not the life I live. My
Me
husband
either.
My husband would tell you that if I have made him a plate of something, he knows it's poisoned because
Right.
that is not
Yeah.
the life I live.
Nope. You are a grown-ass man.
Go get your own plate.
Go get your own plate.
You're fine.
Yeah.
Your arms are fully functional.
Nope.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that's cute that she did that. Good for her.
She really loved him.
When Randy comes home for lunch, there is a note on the counter that reads, "Went shopping. There is a sandwich in the fridge."
Aw.
And
That's
he's like,
sweet.
"Baller, gonna do this sandwich and live my life. Go back to work."
I wish somebody took care of me that way. That was just like, let me do all the things for you. Oh, wait.
Queen, your husband brought us snacks.
I know. I was like, oh, wait a
Pretty
second.
sure.
I've been eating strawberries and whipped cream for an hour. Just kidding. Proceed.
You're like, I sure wish I had that kind of service around here.
Damn it.
It's
They're
ridiculous.
calling me out.
Can't even find good help these days.
Never.
Continue. I'm so sorry.
So, after school that afternoon, Randy receives a phone call from his oldest daughter, Robbie, saying Mom's not home. He tells her it's fine. She went shopping. There's a note.
Men are so dumb.
She'll probably be back soon, right?
I saw this note at noon, and it's 5 p.m., 4 p.m. now. It's
And they
probably
live in
fine.
Granite, Oklahoma.
In small town Oklahoma.
There's nothing that you can do for 4 hours
No.
in a small town.
no.
But I'm sure it's fine. Everything's fine.
He's like, this is great. It's fine.
Jeez.
Everything.
So a couple hours later, when he gets home from work, she's still not home. And he's like, this is weird. And then he recalls that morning, Randolph Dial was working at their home. So he's just like, hey, prison people.
What a wonderful time to recall that all of a sudden.
Yeah. Hey, homeboys in the office, can you find Randolph Dial? And just like put your eyeballs on him. Where's he at? They're trying to locate Dial. They can't. He's not there.
And let me guess, no one even knew he was missing until
No,
that point.
because
You
he
are
didn't
right.
have to show up to head count.
Oh my.
He was not required to go to head count. So no one at all in the prison knew of his whereabouts. They had no idea about his movements that day. None of it.
Great.
The only person that knew was Randy Parker because when he left his house
He saw him with his
that
eyeballs.
morning, he saw him with his eyeballs.
Yeah.
So at that point, it's like 9 p.m. and a report is made that a prisoner has escaped the reformatory
For how long?
and that he kidnapped and took a woman with him.
Jeez.
and they have escaped in a maroon Dodge Caravan.
Was it hers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this whole time, the van is gone, she's gone, and Randy Parker's like, she went shopping, it's fine.
Oh my god.
Maybe he thought she drove to Oklahoma City.
Or Lawton, I
Or
guess,
Lawton,
but
yeah.
I mean, still, like,
I would tell someone though if I was going that far away, if I were leaving.
Shy is like a shopper. She could do it professionally.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Is there any fucking way you could spend 4 hours shopping in Lawton?
No.
Okay. There you go.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So, the report is made. People are like, oh shit, a prison escape. You know, it happens here, but like not that much. So, they cannot find anything. They cannot find these people. They're sending out, you know, they're putting out flyers everywhere. They're putting it on the news, everything.
This was 94?
94.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And a few days later, the minivan is found in Wichita Falls, Texas.
Whoa.
Yeah. They're
That's
like,
how many miles away?
not that much.
Not as much as you'd think, but
maybe like an hour from where they were.
Oh,
hour and a half, I bet.
Okay.
yeah.
Not that much. And during the 2 days between the escape and the minivan being found, Bobbie Parker had made 2 phone calls. So she made a phone call to one of her friends in Granite and to her mother. So the call received by the friend from Bobbie is the day after the escape. So they noticed the escape or reported or whatever at 9 p.m. on August 31st. So September 1st, Bobbie's friend gets a phone call, and Bobbie says into the phone, "Don't interrupt. I only have 15 seconds. I hope to be home soon." And then she started crying and the phone cuts off.
Oh, no.
So the friend's like, the fuck? You know?
That would freak me out.
Yeah. The fuck?
Did the friend know? Do we know if the friend knew at this point that she had been abducted, or
Yes, from all accounts, it
was
Granite,
kind of widely known?
the majority employer in Greer County is the Oklahoma State Reformatory.
Okay.
So everybody and their dog knew that there was an escape.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know how she couldn't have known.
And they probably, too, were calling everyone she knows. Been like, have you seen her? She's gone.
Right.
Like,
right. Yeah. And then a similar call is made to her mother.
Okay.
Almost verbatim.
Like back to back?
Yes.
Okay.
In the same timeline.
Okay.
So she's calling 2 people. They kept it so short that there wasn't the ability to trace the call. Whatever, 94. And when they find the van, they're kind of like, oh shit. So in the van, there's no sign of a struggle, but I'm like, what would be a struggle in the van?
Yeah.
But there is a pack of Basic brand cigarettes, which was the brand that Dial smoked.
And
they
Bobbie
were
did
like,
not smoke, right?
No.
Okay.
And they were like, oh, okay, then this is probably,
Yeah.
they are probably together. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because they found her hair in the van too.
Oh.
Never tested the van, or never tested the hair at all.
They probably just assumed it was hers because it was her van,
Yeah.
which is not very good police work.
No, but
This was 94 before
Yeah.
they were, like, really, like, locking down crime scenes and such, too, if you think about it.
they sort of find out they're doing investigations during this time. Literally after Dial is reported to be escaped, they're doing investigations. They're interviewing inmates that Dial had interactions with in the days leading up to the escape.
Why would they tell them anything? Doesn't he have all this blackmail on them?
Not necessarily blackmail, but he would barter things for them. So he would be like, I know that you're getting transferred or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you give me 2 packs of cigarettes, I'll tell you where they're going to transfer you to.
Okay.
Like shit
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
It wasn't anything hey, we just found out you have herpes or whatever. It wasn't anything like that.
It was like insider information.
It was essentially insider information, and I don't think he was actively selling like prison security secrets or anything to anyone, but he said he would barter things for information, and mostly it was cigarettes.
And if he's gone, there's no one left to barter with, so I guess why not tell him what you know?
Yeah. So, and at this point, I mean, for the most part, if you were an escaping inmate and they had to track you down, there was a good chance you were going to get shot.
Ooh. Lovely.
You know, because they would go out with their shotguns and rifles and go try to track him down. But this guy just kind of disappeared into the wind. Yeah. Which is the name of his book. And there we go. So they're asking inmates, you know, do you know anything about this? And from all accounts that inmates were giving, Dial had sort of spun this story that him and Bobbie Parker were in a relationship.
Because he was delusional.
Yeah, because he was fucking crazy.
Was stalking her and shit. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And he did know things about her because they talked while she was in the gym.
Right.
And while he was working at the Parker household, she essentially tolerated his presence and had small talk with him.
Right.
And he utilized any piece of information to try to spin this into, she loves me.
Well, and how do we know? Because this studio or whatever was in their garage. Mm-hmm. So how do we know that he just wasn't like going through her things like inside the house whenever he could, you know?
1000%. And I think that's what they sort of alluded to when we talked in part 1 about Randy Parker asking for Dial to be removed from his property. Yeah. They sort of alluded to that he was way overstepping.
Getting into the underwear drawer. And,
oh, God, probably.
Yeah.
So gross.
Like, at one point, he painted a nude portrait of Bobbie Parker.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
red flag.
Let me just say, too, that I know artists that have painted actually sketched nude portraits of people that were fully clothed.
Yeah.
But the nude portrait they did, or picture they did, was almost, like, spot on. So he could have done that with
you know what boobies look like when they're naked.
Yeah, and you just kind of know the outline of...
And what the body shape is.
Yeah, and her body shape. And so when
we're not saying she posed for him.
Right.
Absolutely not.
Not at all.
But
she could have been standing in the garage and he saw her and was like, ooh, I bet she'd look like this naked. And, you know, threw it up.
But this was sort of the tale that he was spinning to people was that he and Bobbie Parker were in this relationship, and one way to prove this was that he had painted her nude shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of these inmates were kind of given this information that at minimum he was obsessed with her. At most they were in a relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where it sort of came from, is all this chatter is starting to influence Department of Corrections officials and Greer County and everything else to say, is she a willing participant? Yeah. Or is she not? Right. You know?
Did they report those phone calls that they got?
The mom
and the friend?
in Kansas and the friend both reported them. They tried to trace and apparently weren't able to. Okay. But other information that they received from inmates during this time frame is that in the weeks leading up to the escape, Dial had been trying to barter with different inmates for Valium pills.
Okay.
Yeah.
As in something that would incapacitate.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So Randy Parker immediately believed that Dial somehow drugged Bobbie Parker, kidnapped her, and escaped in the van.
Yeah.
To Texas.
That checks out.
Yeah.
That's what I would think, yeah.
Which all signs point to that.
Yeah.
I think. 10 days after the escape, so we're now on like September the 9th, Bobbie made the last phone call, and it marked the last time anyone in her family would hear her voice for over 10 years. So she made a phone call to her sister-in-law, which was her brother's wife.
Okay.
Saying, I'm okay. I need you to tell the girls I'm okay. I love them. Everything is going to be fine.
Wasn't heard from again. So she's alive, though, for that 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So as time goes on, the leads are very few and far between. One of the most credible sightings of Dial and Bobbie Parker is from September 1994, which is the month after they escaped.
Right.
And it was reported that a man matching Dial's description with a woman that looked like Bobbie, but with blonde hair, were at an art show in Galveston, Texas.
Oh, my God, guys.
Yeah, which totally tracks, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Totally tracks. By the time they got down there and investigated it, I mean, there was nothing. Yeah. Yeah.
So was she a willing participant in this? That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah, it's bananas. So during their time on the run, it just kept being a bigger rumor mill.
Yeah.
The longer she stayed gone, the more people were like, well, they haven't found her dead, so she must be
right. Yeah.
with him,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
That's unfortunate.
yeah, and it just kept kind of exploding because they would put it on the news every once in a while. I remember being a little kid. They would put it on the news. Hey, has anybody seen these people?
Yeah.
And then in 95, Unsolved Mysteries did an episode
Oh, really?
about it.
Okay.
And Randy Parker appeared on the episode.
Okay.
They also did an America's Most Wanted in 95.
Ooh, that checks out.
Yep. And they were always just forever begging for help finding Bobbie Parker,
Yeah.
where she located, any tip that leads to the apprehension of Dial or Parker.
Okay.
The FBI would give a $20,000 reward.
Right.
So
That's a pretty big reward.
yeah. So that was all out there for years and years and years. In 98, a former Tulsa homicide detective named Charles Sasser published a book about Dial's escape.
Oh.
So he publishes this book. These people are still on the run.
Right.
This is 4 years after the fact.
Okay.
He publishes this book called At Large. The book is like, okay. I mean, whatever. It's probably regionally popular or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's a lot of speculation. It's a lot of information about Dial's background.
Right.
Which there's not a lot of information out
Yeah.
there. He was kind of, he kind of just kept to himself and kind of moved around the country and did art sales, and he managed a gallery at one point in Galveston, Texas.
Right.
But this book by this detective, he kind of went around doing regional book signings and stuff like that around the state of Oklahoma.
Okay.
As we do.
Yeah.
And in 2001, which was a few years after the book was published, he got a call from Randolph Dial.
Himself?
Uh-huh.
Like the man himself?
That's what he says.
Okay.
And he said he spoke with Dial for over an hour.
Whoa.
And that Dial told him he got everything right in his book. In his book, he writes that Bobbie Parker is a willing participant.
Uh-huh.
And they had a relationship and they absconded together in a minivan. Right?
Yep.
Like lovers do.
But also, you're trying to sell a book.
Exactly. And it was all projection. There was no way to know any of this.
Yeah.
So he gets this call. He says he speaks with him for an hour. He says during this time he also speaks with Bobbie Parker.
What?
Uh-huh. Who told him at the time she was happy and fine and didn't know whether getting in touch with her family at this point in her life would just cause more of an issue.
Oh my gosh.
And I think at one point, too, she was like, should I just let them continue thinking I'm dead?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So one side of me is like, okay, well, she totally ran off with him. But the other side of me is like, that dude's just trying to sell a book.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
Who
And-
knows if that actually took place? Who knows
So,
if that phone call took
The
place?
phone call we do know the phone call took
Okay.
place because Dial and Bobbie both stated they did talk to this
like
guy.
later. Okay.
Right,
Okay.
but the way it was more portrayed was basically Dial told Bobbie if she, asks for help in any way, like she'll be sorry. And so when Bobbie was like, I'm fine, I'm happy.
I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly. And
Wink,
so,
wink.
so there was, and that's her side of the story. So, but
Yeah.
again, I can, this is what Shane and I went back and forth on,
Yeah.
did she willingly do it? Was she totally just, a victim of sociopathic?
And then in that 10 years, she's just like totally brainwashed.
And this is,
Because you guys were telling me how manipulative this dude was
Mm-hmm.
in the last episode. So,
Yep.
is this some sort of weird Stockholm syndrome happening?
Yeah, that was my take. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is,
And as a mom, you're thinking, well, if I don't do what he says, he's going to come back. He's going to kill my kids. He's going to,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're dealing with with a murderer.
Yeah,
Right.
literally a murderer.
So who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
After Sasser gets this phone call, he reports it to the FBI. They aren't able to trace the call.
and they talked for an hour.
Whatever. I was like,
why
okay.
aren't they able to trace the call? Did it have to be like a live call at the time to be traced?
This is 2001.
Okay.
I mean, we have cell phones. And
Well,
stuff.
and I mean, even back then, like in the yellow pages, like if you look at your phone bill back then, it tells you exactly what calls you made and like where that call was located, at least.
Exactly.
Like, okay.
Yeah, there had to be a way that they should have been able to trace that call.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions about it, and my spidey sense says something ain't right there, but
Well, and also, how did he even get that guy's phone number to begin with?
yeah.
Like, I'm just guessing he just looked it up in the phone book. So, I don't know. That's
I mean, back
crazy.
in the day, people willingly put their numbers in a phone book.
Yes.
You know?
That was a
Yeah,
thing that happened.
that is a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And their addresses, by the way.
And
yeah.
their
I
addresses.
totally forgot
Their
about that.
addresses were in there,
We
too.
had addresses and phone numbers
Yeah.
in the yellow pages.
You had access to everybody's shit.
You really
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. Everything.
And if your teenager had a line, it would say like the Joneses teenager line
I
or
know.
whatever. And
How
you're like,
scary is that?
do you want to
Yeah.
call and harass young girls? Here, call this number.
Exactly.
What a great plan.
That was real smart.
Ew. I forgot how gross we were.
We were there. The ignorance in the 90s. There is just ignorance, right?
Ew.
Yeah, so that's why I'm wondering, like, if you look on the bill, okay, well, the call came from this number. Well, let's just look in the phone book for that area. Here's the name, the phone number, and the address. So
One would
just-
think.
Even if it's a payphone in
Yeah.
buttfuck
You would still
Egypt,
have the
like,
area.
They can trace payphones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they were doing that in the 90s.
You still knew what area it was coming from.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Anyway.
It's weird.
I don't buy it. That's just what it said. So I'm just telling you guys what I heard.
Okay.
So the America's Most Wanted episode that they did in 95 would eventually be the only thing that brought this shit home.
They were the ones that put out was it $20,000 or something?
The FBI put out a $20,000 reward.
But I'm sure they advertised it.
Oh, yeah.
On America's Most Wanted.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So this person, this America's Most Wanted fan, probably OG Murderino right there,
Yeah.
was watching America's Most Wanted and went onto America's Most Wanted website and was looking at stuff and saw a picture of Randolph Dial and Bobbie Parker and was like, these fucking people live down the road from me.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. This person calls into the FBI and says, hey, I know where these people are. I will take you to their house today. If you want to send an agent this
Yeah.
way,
Oh,
I
crap.
know where they live.
Yeah.
Okay.
They get this call. It's a couple living near the incredibly small town of Campty, Texas.
Okay.
Okay? I would say it's outside of Center, Texas, but nobody knows where the fuck that is either.
No,
I know it's right along the border of Louisiana.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
literally
It's
right across the border from Shreveport, Louisiana.
All right.
Um,
How far away do we know? How far away is this from where we started? Like a couple 100 miles?
Oh,
well,
no, it's more than that.
it's going to be a couple 100 miles from Dallas.
Okay.
So,
I know where Dallas is.
yeah. Lawton to DFW and then Dallas to Camp T, Texas is probably maybe 400 miles? 400 miles or 300, 400 miles?
But we're still in Texas.
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
Did not leave Texas.
That's what blows my mind. You would think they would go at least into another state.
That's what I can't comprehend. So, you know this, the guy that escaped prison with the corrections officer in Georgia.
Right.
Just last 2 months ago.
Casey.
Yeah, Casey Smith or
something.
whatever it is.
And she is something white.
White. They're both white.
They're
Yeah,
both white.
Yes.
Right.
Because my husband was like, are they related?
Yes. No, they weren't.
They were just having an affair.
Yeah.
And they were both white.
They were both white.
Super white. God bless him. So those two escaped and just went to Indiana.
Yeah.
Like, after weeks, you're only in Indiana?
Yeah. You would think like the goal would be like crossing the border somewhere.
I'm crossing every
Yeah.
border that I possibly can.
Go to Canada, and then what was that one guy? The don't fuck with cats guy.
Yeah.
Oh,
he
Luca
was like,
Magnotta.
Luca Magnotta. He was like, let's go to Canada, and then let's go to France.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm not staying here. Like, yeah, you would think cross some borders.
I mean, why stay so close to the region that you are wanted in?
Even if they went across the border to Mexico, and they could just keep going.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. That's crazy.
We know from our research of the cartel people down in Mexico that are blonde hair and blue eyed.
Yeah.
Those people would have fit in just fine down there.
Yeah.
Just fine. So this America's Most Wanted viewer calls in to the FBI, says these people live down the road from me. The FBI mobilizes within a couple of days.
I'm glad they took that seriously.
Yeah, they took it super seriously because at that point they were not getting any more tips.
Yeah.
So they were like,
It's been 10 years. Like,
this person sounds pretty sure, you know?
Yeah.
So they mobilized FBI from Texas. They also mobilized Texas Rangers as well as local Texas law enforcement.
Okay.
And people from Greer County in Oklahoma. So they took a team down there. They sort of checked everything out, looked at where these people were living. And the location that they were directed to was a small,
Please say a chicken farm. Please say a chicken farm.
It definitely is a chicken farm.
Oh, yes.
It definitely is a chicken farm. And it was a small, like, single wide trailer that they were
course it
living
was.
on in the woods on this chicken farm in East Texas. Okay?
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
I wouldn't have said a trailer, but I felt like there was chickens in there somewhere.
So this place is literally in buttfuck Egypt, Texas.
Gosh.
3 miles off the closest paved road. Okay? So just dirt roads everywhere. And on April 4th, 2005, which was almost 11 years after they went missing, Dial is taken into custody peacefully after agents and law enforcement surrounded the trailer, walked up to the door, and knocked on the fucking door. I shit you not.
yeah.
I shit you not.
Man.
He came to the door.
It's just like, I've been expecting.
For real.
He was.
For real.
Literally.
He came to the door, and they said he was sort of surprised, but he had been anticipating it for years. He was cooking a fucking steak on the stove
That's funny.
and had a loaded revolver sitting on the table next to him.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So he just didn't want to die that day.
He did not have ambitions to die that day,
Okay.
apparently.
Well, you know what? Good for you.
Yeah. Good for you not wanting to go down in a blaze of glory.
Well, I mean, he would have for sure gotten her involved and taken her with him. So
Yeah. Yeah.
glad that went that way.
So the best thing about it was these agents waited until he was alone in the trailer house. Like, they were watching him.
Oh, okay. So she wasn't there.
For a couple of days, they were watching their movements to
Okay.
see what their timing was, if it was the actual people that they were looking for.
Yeah.
And after the first day of watching him, they were pretty fucking sure it was... Dial rarely ever came out of the house.
So he probably like sent her out to do the shopping and everything. Okay.
But Bobbie left the house, and they were like, that's her. So they started tracking her movements, and they wait for her to go to work. And then...
He made her go to work?
Oh, just wait.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Okay.
And then they give it a couple hours, and they surround the trailer, go up to the door, and he just surrenders peacefully. So then they go pick up Bobbie.
Okay. Where is she working at?
On a chicken farm.
Chicken farm! That's 2 for me. 2.
On a chicken farm.
Wait, a completely separate chicken farm?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That's a lot of
their
chicken farms
little
in Texas.
chicken enclave,
Okay.
if you will, is part of a larger operation.
Aha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they just kind of live on the outskirts of this farm.
Gotcha.
And they're living in like help housing.
Okay. All right.
Basically.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So she's kind of going all over this massive chicken ranch operation.
Chicken ranch. We've upgraded.
And so they go to find her, and she's mowing the lawn on this ranch after she's already done chicken chores and like cleaned out fucking chicken coops and stuff like that.
Chores.
Come to find out, she's the only one working.
Well, I immediately knew that. I just knew that.
Because he wanted to work on his art project.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's why he stayed in Texas, because maybe he had hookups at those galleries and stuff that he was still selling to or something.
So I do remember one of the things, there is video footage of him at a women's lunch in one of the little small communities around there that was an art lunch, and he was the special art speaker at this women's luncheon. And it was a video of him in his nice little button-down shirt, slacks, like as this other persona talking to this at this women's luncheon about art.
Did they not know that he was like wanted?
Nope, not at all.
It's like going by a different name or something?
Yeah.
They went by a different name.
They
my
went by
gosh.
different names. So they were going by Richard and Samantha Deal.
Dick and Sam.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
checks out.
Exactly.
He seems like a Richard.
He was a total Richard.
It was a total.
Total Richard.
Don't be a Richard.
Anyway.
We get sidetracked.
Sorry.
So they're going by Richard and Samantha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And everybody knows her as Sam.
Okay.
Because she, like I said, she's the only one that ever went out and about.
Right.
He pretty much stayed inside all of the time.
I guess he thought my face would be recognized more than hers, except I'll go speak at this lecture.
Yeah. I mean,
I think he was still like trying to sell art.
he was brazen as fuck. Let's
Yeah.
just say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Let's just say that.
he wanted her to do all of the,
Dirty work.
all
Dirty
of the
work.
everything,
Yeah.
it sounds
Yeah.
like.
while
Yeah.
he did his art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you, 14?
Yeah. So that same day that he's taken into custody, Bobbie is picked up. They don't take her into custody. They don't charge her with anything.
Okay.
Randy Parker is notified that his wife has been found. She is alive.
Oh, man.
Come down to Texas.
Yeah.
Basically.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So they did not tell him anything until they were 100% sure that it was
They
her.
even tell him that, like, she was alive?
Yeah, they
Okay.
told him. They were like, come down to Texas. She's alive and she's well and she, you know,
I can't
we found
imagine
her.
what that was like.
Yeah.
He was ready. He was like on as soon as he found out. He was like, "Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
get down there."
He was in
Good on
Texas
him.
the same day. At that point, they kind of start questioning people around the town of Campty, Texas and Center, Texas. And they found a woman who Dial and Bobbie Parker had worked for previously on another fucking chicken farm.
Oh, my God. I'm 3 for 3.
Um,
So many chicken farms.
So this woman named Deborah Grace employed them and they lived on her farm. It was very quickly that she realized that the relationship between them, even though he was kind of purporting them to be a married couple,
Okay.
she was like, that shit was toxic. And it was real bad. So he would always send her to work,
Right.
right? And he stayed in the trailer She was the only one that would clean out chicken coops and stuff like that. It was too messy and dirty for him.
Oh my God.
But
killing is not.
Yeah. And this woman, Deborah Grace, would frequently find Bobbie Parker sitting on like an overturned bucket in the chicken coops, just being alone and crying.
Aww.
And that's where she just kind of escaped to all the time.
I'm so sorry, Bobbie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
sucks.
then at one time, Deborah Grace comes by the house that they're living in for whatever, a visit or whatever, and sort of happened upon a domestic violence incident between the two. And she had to intervene because she was afraid that Dial was going to kill her.
Oh my gosh.
So she was very afraid for Bobbie. Deborah Grace asked Bobbie multiple times if Deborah could help her get out of this relationship and go to
That's good.
like a domestic violence center. Can I call the cops on him?
She can't be like, well, no, because, you know.
Exactly.
This whole
Exactly.
situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically she plays the role of I love him and I
Yeah.
can't leave him and all this stuff, really knowing,
That would suck.
you know, if he gets picked up, he will use his connections to
Yeah.
kill my children and
Yeah.
shit like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
God.
So after that, Deborah Grace was like, pretty soon they were gone. And
Well,
I,
she's on to them.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear from them again.
Yeah.
But I always hoped that Bobbie was okay.
Yeah.
You know, she said, I was afraid he was going to kill her.
Oh.
So anyway, that kind of tells you what people on the outside were seeing from their relationship. And even though they were getting these sorts of reports, there was still all of the chatter and innuendo, especially in Oklahoma, after she was found, that, oh, she left willingly. Why would he keep her alive this long unless they were together, participating together,
Yeah.
and all that? So why couldn't she just leave? If she could leave to go to work every day, why couldn't she just, you know, walk down the road and ask for help? And it turns out the convenience store where she cashed her paychecks every week, every 2 weeks, was right across the street from the local sheriff's department.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so even the sheriff's department in that area of Texas was getting in on it and was like, we can see this convenience store that she was in every week.
Oh my
She could have
God.
just walked across the street. Like, what's the problem?
Did you not have like a big giant poster of her face in your office?
Yeah. So I was just like,
Wow.
so everybody was sort of blaming her and asking how it's possible that she wasn't a willing participant and all
Well,
that.
and you also have no idea that it's been 10 years. Who knows if she wasn't chained up for the first 5 of it?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know? So,
Exactly.
I mean, you know, you give a little, and then finally they're not on chains anymore. You know, it's just, you never know.
Yeah, and literally no one knows what happened those first few
Yeah.
years, because even Dial in his book did not really disclose.
Well, he's not going to implement himself.
No.
You know, and if that's literally all that happened, like if anything like that happened, then, you know, he's not going to tell you about it.
No.
Right.
No. So after he's taken into custody, he immediately tells authorities she was not a willing participant. I took her at knife point from her home in Granite. I stole her vehicle. I drugged her. I was the one driving the car. Yeah.
Okay.
And he said he kept her in line under... He never admitted to abusing her or even touching her. But he said he kept her in line with threats that...
her family, right? Yeah.
That he would kill her family. He would have her family killed because of all of these connections. You know, but he admitted to the cops immediately that like all that was bullshit and he had zero connections to anyone and whatever. He was just obsessed with her.
Yeah.
But I mean, from her point of view, I would think, well, you have to have some sort of connection to escape from prison so easily. Like, for you to be a trustee and for, you know, the warden to love you so damn much. And
Yeah.
Right. And that's probably what was going on in her head when he told her that he has connections that can get rid of her family. She was like, well, shit.
Yeah.
It's probably true because, you know, he probably gave her those.
You were a murderer with minimum security status.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And trustee status.
Yes.
that is so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel bad for her.
So he's sitting in jail in East Texas and giving media interviews. He's like living his best life because he is the focus of attention.
Yep.
He gets to talk about himself and how great of an artist he is and how, you know,
I need to see one of these.
yeah, he's giving
Sculptures or whatever.
all of these interviews while he is sitting in jail. And while he's sitting in jail, he's just spouting off bullshit. He's telling people he's a Vietnam vet, he was a Green Beret, he has all these connections, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, bro, you're sitting in jail. You had an FBI raid your fucking trailer house.
Yeah.
You don't have any connections.
Yeah.
If you were living in a trailer house on a chicken farm,
Yeah.
You don't have
you
any
don't
connections.
have connections.
No, you're fine. Calm down. But he said after they ditched the minivan in Wichita Falls,
Okay.
they stole a vehicle, drove down to Houston, where they lived in the car and ate at a local homeless shelter for like the first few weeks. So that totally tracks with him being in Galveston less than a month at that art show.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He went on to state that they never had a sexual relationship, although he was infatuated with her from the time that he first met her. He said that they occupied separate bedrooms in the home, and she was very much treated as a captive who developed Stockholm Syndrome out of fear.
I mean, that I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe that he didn't rape her. I don't know if I believe that.
Well, it's funny you say that. Because after he's extradited from Texas back to Greer County in Oklahoma, that's where Granite is, he's charged, but he is charged only with a felony count of escape from a penal institution. That's
Not kidnapping? Even though he admitted to kidnapping? Mm-hmm. What?
That's the only charge he faced because he already had a life sentence with the possibility of parole, but they were like, we'll just never parole him. We'll just go make him serve his life
That's
sentence.
not how you do this. That's not how this is done.
Like, you can charge him with other shit.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And then if for some reason the life sentence is ever returned,
Yeah.
he's going to serve time for the other shit he did.
Well, not only that, but he could get life without parole for kidnapping alone.
Yes. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You know, a life sentence, now I don't know in Texas, but a life sentence in Oklahoma is around 40 years.
Yeah.
And we're not even including the parole on there. So charge him. Like, why are we not charging him? That's so stupid.
So they charged him with that escape from a penal institution.
He literally said it with his mouth. Sorry.
Yeah.
He was sentenced to serve time at OSP in McAllister.
Okay.
Oklahoma State Penitentiary in
Yeah.
McAllister. This was in 2005 when he was taken into custody. He died in 2007
Well, good.
at OSP. And, good riddance to bad rubbish, right?
Jeez.
So, it would be nice if it ended there. It doesn't.
Oh.
Well,
I mean, she's got a lot of psychological stuff to get through. So
yes.
Just wait, it gets worse.
Oh,
yes.
no.
So, Bobbie Parker in 2005 reunited with her husband. They reunited in Texas, and he immediately took her to his new home in Fort Supply, Oklahoma, which is northwest Oklahoma.
That's got to be a lot to take in.
He was, at that point, the warden over William S. Key Correctional Facility.
Okay.
And at this point, he's in his early 40s, which is, I mean, he climbed the career ladder fast.
Yeah.
In DOC. So he was living in Fort Supply, just on the grounds of William S. Key, because that's where the warden's house
Warden's
is.
house is on the grounds.
Yep. right off the highway. We drove by it 100,000
All the
times.
time.
That's where she would go back home to.
Okay.
One of her daughters was already grown, so she was like 20 years old at the time. One of her daughters was getting ready to graduate high school. Her youngest daughter was getting ready to graduate high school.
Missed everything.
Yeah, missed absolutely everything. And so they thought they were going to be able to kind of just go home, pick up the pieces, heal, become a family, you know, work through all that weird shit that is when you haven't seen someone in 10 years and now you live with them again.
Like literally all the trauma, because not only did she go through trauma, which we don't even know the extent of the trauma she went through, but to being children and losing your mom and never knowing where your mom is or what even happened to her.
Yeah.
There's no telling what happened to those poor
And growing up
girls.
with people speculating that your mom is
yeah, man, like people are awful
in
when it
love
comes
with
to stuff
a
like that.
felon that she absconded with. You know what I mean?
But then having a mom who maybe doesn't want to ever talk about any of that stuff and you just really need answers.
Yeah, like did that ever happen? Like was there so
And that's what we don't know.
yeah.
So for 3 years, they try to live that life, right? They try to get back to normal, do what they can do to just live a normal life. And she said after she was found, people were asking her, what do you want to do? And she was like, I'd like to go back to teaching. You know, she thought she was going to have a normal life.
Oh, man.
In 2008, the district attorney of Greer County brought charges against Bobbie for assisting in a prisoner escape.
What?
Yep.
3 years later? Why?
I'll tell you.
Oh, my gosh.
So, during the search of the home in Kamptee, Texas, they collected like 800 pieces of evidence.
Oh, my God.
800 from a 2-bedroom single wide. Part of that evidence that was collected were Valentines that were exchanged between Randolph Dial and Bobbie Parker.
Oh, no.
Love letters.
No.
And condoms.
Oh.
There was also like a vibrator found, but that's neither here nor there, and I'm not here to kink shame anybody.
No, like
No, live your life. Do
So
what you
they decided it was all consensual.
do. That's what they decided.
Man.
Yes.
I don't know if I believe that still.
Yeah.
You do what you got to do to stay alive, man. You do what you have to do.
That's what, and that was the whole thing. So, again, she's found in 2005. They don't charge her until 2008. They don't try her until 2011. So 6 years of dragging on and on.
yeah.
What happened to fair and speedy trial?
That's exactly what we were just. And like 6 years, she lived in fear of potentially going to prison.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, let's just.
For something that held a maximum sentence of 10 years.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Jury selection for this trial took weeks because, like I mentioned earlier,
Everybody knew about it.
everybody knew about it, and everybody has some connection to the Oklahoma State Reformatory in Granite in Greer County. It is the largest employer in that county. Okay?
Jeez.
Everybody. The jury selection took weeks. The trial itself took for fucking ever.
And this was the state versus her, this wasn't a federal. This
Right.
was the state.
This
Okay.
was a state. So Bobbie hired an awesome defense attorney. She hired a guy named Garvin Isaacs. And
I've heard that name before.
yes, you
Yes,
have.
you have.
Isaacs was the lead defense attorney for Jean Leroy Hart in the Girl Scout murders trial.
Okay. I was like, I have spoken about him. I can't remember where.
Yeah.
Okay.
During opening statements, they painted the relationship between Dial and Bobbie as one that was controlled by fear, drugs, and rape.
That checks out.
That totally checks out. The defense alleged that Bobbie was repeatedly raped by Dial and was controlled with alcohol and drugs provided by Dial. So essentially, he wanted to keep her drunk and high all of the time so she couldn't.
Oh my God.
So she wouldn't have the wherewithal to walk away.
Yeah.
Right?
Keep him weak.
Yes, keep him weak. I mean, come on, that's any abuser's MO, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Keep him weak and keep him
Secluded.
Keep him
secluded.
close. Keep him weak.
Yep. So the state's argument, of course, was that Bobbie fell in love with Dial and took her opportunity to flee from a loveless marriage to be with him.
Where's the evidence of a loveless marriage?
Exactly.
Yeah, there was none.
And the whole thing is, during all of these years, Randy Parker himself is forever like, I just want my wife back.
Jeez.
If he truly believed that she would have left on her own volition, he would have just divorced her and moved on with his life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or even after, I don't know what it is in Texas, but after like 7 years or something like that, if someone is gone for 7 years, I think you can declare them dead.
Yeah.
And you're free to do it. He didn't do that, right? So he obviously had some sort of hope.
Yeah, he was the one holding out hope for her return.
Yeah.
This breaks my heart.
Yeah. So she's on trial. They're reading these love letters and Valentines
In front of her husband.
talking about a fucking vibrator and
Oh my God.
Yeah.
everything like that. One of the letters sort of alluded to the idea that Bobbie didn't want to live without Dial, and it basically said, at some point we will be together forever in heaven.
Well, I mean, come on. You've brainwashed her for 10 years into thinking that you can't survive without him. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
This is what they do.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally the entire purpose. He won. He did it. He did what he set out to do.
And if you're an abuse victim, what do you try to do to get your abuser to not hurt you?
Kill themselves.
Make them think you love them. Make them think you're
Here you
here
go. You
for
go
them,
first. Here's a gun.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, come on. So,
Jeez.
yeah. So the state's first witness on the stand was Agent Robert Williams from the OSBI, and he by himself provided testimony for 14 straight days.
What? Wait, whoa.
Yes.
Holy cow.
Yes.
Jeez.
insane.
Absolutely insane.
I can't even imagine what he's talking about for 14 days straight.
Exactly. And then one of the state's witnesses, which was Warden Cowley, the man himself,
Of course it was.
testified that he saw Bobbie and Dial sitting on a porch swing together, drinking coffee in the days prior to the escape. So he's like setting up this whole thing that they had a relationship. Not that his fucking terrible management of that prison led to a prisoner escape with a kidnap.
And I feel like maybe that's why.
Yeah.
I think he was trying to do everything in his power to take any spotlight or any type of eyes off of him
Exactly.
and what he was doing at that prison. And
So no charges were brought against him
yeah,
for any of that.
and
Right.
within days of them leaving, within escaping, everything Dial had painted, the murals painted,
Gone.
the pottery studio, everything
Was covered up.
was covered up.
Yeah.
And this is from prison employees, not prisoners, that were on the stand, said, yeah, within days of them leaving, we were told to cover everything up.
Yeah, they didn't want DOC in there being like, how the fuck was this guy moving around so freely?
Yeah, how the fuck was he able to put a mural in the
Yeah.
department?
He
the
wasn't.
deputies?
Psh, here's some cover.
Why is he hanging out in the deputy warden's office where they keep secure paperwork and all kinds of shit? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
he just didn't want to get in trouble.
He did
No.
not.
Yeah.
Not at all.
No.
Makes a great witness.
Yeah.
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 Jeez.
And eventually Bobbie herself testified that she was held captive. She did not go willingly. She was threatened, abused, and drugged repeatedly by Dial to keep her under his control. And it was only after he was apprehended that she learned that his connections to the mob and law enforcement were all complete and total bullshit. Keep in mind, at this point, Dial is already dead. When she goes to trial, Dial's been dead for 4 years.
Oh my God. So then there's no reason for her to hold anything back
No.
because
Right.
she knows that he's not going to cause any retribution.
Yeah.
So why would she lie about it?
And they can't call him as a witness to say, no, I took her by force. She was not.
But he
a willing-
did state that.
He did in his prison or in his jail interviews and everything like that. They never entered it into evidence.
Oh, of course they didn't.
Because it's hearsay.
Of course they didn't.
Yep.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah.
the trial took so long that the judge consistently encouraged both sides to expedite the process. It was like a 6-month trial
That's really
in
long.
Greer County for not a murder.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
For not a murder.
Yeah.
and they called more than 80 witnesses. There were 800 plus pieces of evidence presented. So for comparison's sake, the jury selection on this took weeks. The jury selection for the Terry Nichols bombing conspiracy trial took 9 days.
I was about to say, I think they did more for this trial than they did for him killing that guy earlier.
Yeah, when they didn't even put him on trial for
No,
that trial,
no.
they just sentenced
They're
him
just
and
like, all
rolled out.
right,
Yeah.
here you go to prison. You want to be in prison so bad? Here you go.
Here's your cell.
Yeah. So all of this started, like jury selection and stuff started in like March of 2011. September 2011,
Oh no.
they convict her.
Jeez.
She is found guilty. She's sentenced to 1 year in prison
For all of that for 1 year.
for 1 year for aiding in the escape.
Did she get any time served?
She served 6 months
Okay.
and got let out for good behavior.
Okay.
And
Still don't approve of it, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently she was like a model inmate. She was helping teach.
well, of course,
stuff,
she's
like-
been suppressed before.
Yeah, she's been a prisoner now for
she's been a
how many
prisoner
years?
before.
That one of the interviews she did too, when they told her, you know, you're gonna be sentenced to how you could be sentenced up to 10 years, and she was like, I've been in a prison for the past 10 years,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
this is nothing new to me.
Yeah.
So she had made peace with it in a way. even
She's
though it
probably
was-
like, hell, if I can get trustee status in Oklahoma DOC, I'll have more fucking freedom than I did down in the chicken farm.
Ever.
Probably.
Yeah.
So
I won't have to clean up after chickens.
Yeah.
apparently you can do whatever the hell you want.
Jeez.
So she left prison as a convicted felon.
Oh my god.
She would never
Which
be able
means she can't teach.
to get a
ever.
teaching job. She can never vote.
I'm very like this upsets me.
She
So stupid.
later filed an appeal to her conviction. However, it would cost over $100,000 to order the court transcripts
What?
because the trial was so lengthy.
Oh my god.
And of course they couldn't afford it. So her attorney attempted to have her declared indigent so that the state would have to provide the transcripts for her,
Okay.
and they denied it.
Of course.
Yep.
Because her husband is the freaking warden. He's making good money.
Yep. So they later denied her appeal as well.
Of course
So
they did.
she's still a convicted felon.
Of course.
Randy Parker continued his career at DOC and eventually retired, and still was married to Bobbie Parker.
Well, you know
Still
what? Good for
maintained
him.
her innocence. Still supported her. It's just insane.
That's crazy. That's a wild ride.
Right?
That's insane to me.
Yeah.
Bananas. During all of this, like, we were talking when we first started this research, and Dial was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole. At the time of his escape, he had already served 7+ years, almost 8 years
Yeah.
of his sentence. He had already been reduced to minimum security status.
Right.
He was probably close to being paroled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any hearing or parole hearing or anything like that would have come up, the fucking warden
Oh,
would
yeah.
have spoken on his behalf
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
said what a great model prisoner
Yeah.
he was.
So then, like, I feel like that he was short tracked for maybe
He
early
was
parole.
1000% short tracked,
Yeah.
yes.
It's super interesting story, there's so many things that go into it. Like, you could totally debate both sides of whether she was willing or not, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah. That's you could debate that literally all day.
yeah. Her husband seemed so devoted and so sure that she never went willingly, and when she was found, he was like, I made sure I was the first. You know, I made sure I got there as soon as I could and brought her home. Like, and there was no.
I mean, if it was a loveless marriage, I feel like he would have declared her dead a long time ago.
Also, in one part of Dial's book, he goes on to tell a story of how he overheard Randy talking, like putting his wife down and saying all these things.
Of
And
course he did.
as Shan was reading it, I was like, he's literally projecting himself onto Randy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As how he views women, because he didn't.
And in my mind, when I read that they found like condoms and stuff in the trailer and whatever, and this led to the fact that they're having consensual sex, he admitted that he didn't want anything to do with kids. He didn't even have anything to do with his own kids.
Yeah.
Like after he was done with the moms, he was just like, meh, bye. You know?
Yeah. And it's not like he can't drive her down and be like, put her on birth control because...
Exactly.
Yeah, especially in the 90s when everything is documented.
Exactly.
You can't just go buy
So I'm
something.
like, if you're raping someone repeatedly, a woman of childbearing age, you're not stupid enough to...
He's smart enough to get out of prison.
Her pregnant, you know?
He's smart enough to escape.
Just because there's condoms doesn't mean it was consensual sex. Because there are tons of men that have raped women and put condoms on just because of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's insane. That's crazy. Thank you guys for coming and telling me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. This was fun.
It was a lot of fun. I very much enjoyed not having to tell the story. And just sitting and going, I'm sorry, what? What did you just say to me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
For the listeners out there, make sure you go and listen to You're Doing Fine, Oklahoma, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, please.
Please join us.
Please and thank you.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
You've reached the end of our episode. All suspects are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Join Raven next time on the Sirens Podcast.
Do we have an outro? That's our outro, isn't it?